Going on with our panelists in the order initially planned, Angeliki, you work at Meta in Brussels, covering these issues quite closely. So maybe I could ask from your perspective as another corporate innovator, what you feel at the moment about the run of play, as we might say, on the AI Act, and in particular, how you see the sandbox concept fitting with what you do as a company.
Thank you to be part of this interesting discussion today. So we'll start with our views regarding the need for a holistic approach to experimentation, which has been also very well explained by the previous panelists, which considers in a way not only actually regulatory boxes, sandboxes, but also policy prototyping. Another interesting concept that I would like to discuss with you today. And our work also we've done with the Open Loop program on the AI Act. Later on, I can also dive in a bit more on the research and the preliminary insights we've collected on the regulatory sandbox provision. So we believe that in addition to, but also as a way to complement regulatory sandboxes, there are also other and additional experimental governance methods like policy prototyping, which we believe that should be developed and implemented as well. They both belong to the experimental governance family. However, they do slightly different things and operate in different contexts, namely in different regulatory environments. So, as you know, regulatory sandboxes operate in the context of existing legislation and allow for the testing of technological innovations under regulators' oversight. They operate by granting specific temporary exemption of specific legal requirements by creating, for example, a lighter regulatory environment for companies. They also are useful when trying to reform existing rules to accommodate technological advances. For example, are used around the world to experiment with changes to existing financial regulatory rules so that they better accommodate new financial technology applications and tools. On the other hand, policy prototyping operates in the absence of existing legislation and allows for regulatory experimentation when contemplating a new regulatory framework, rather than merely updating an existing one to accommodate new technology. Policy prototyping also provides a more holistic experimental governance platform, examining and testing different regulatory and non-regulatory instruments. And as we know, there is currently a difficulty in assessing the most, let's say, appropriate and feasible balance amongst governance instruments. We have different types of those. We have laws, we have regulations, we have standards. Also, the colleague from Fujitsu discussed about ethical frameworks. So, in a complex topic as AI, we believe that policy prototyping, it's in this way, it can provide a better, let's say, testing platform to explore different combinations amongst those instruments, while bringing AI actors and stakeholders together, as also Dragos and Virginia mentioned before. So, to promote the adoption of experimental approaches in emerging tech policymaking, we have initiated and supported the launch of Open Loop, which is a global strategic initiative, and we can describe it as also a consortium of different types of stakeholders. So we brought together regulators, governments, the private sector, tech businesses, academics, but also civil society, a type of stakeholder that we have mentioned, also the importance of which we mentioned before, that promote and deploy experimental regulatory efforts in the field of new and emerging technologies like AI. So Open Loop co-creates and tests new governance frameworks through policy prototyping programs, and at the same time supports the evaluation of existing legal frameworks through regulatory sandbox exercises. If we have more time, we can also discuss a bit later how we do this, and also the type of results that we had after the first pilot exercise that we conducted in Europe. Thank you. Thank you
very much. And since in our preparatory conversations you mentioned your recent report, I had the opportunity to glance through it. And for those on the call who haven't seen it, it's interesting. It's a very, this sort of policy prototyping technique applied to AI, and as your report says, with a sort of bonus conversation around sandboxes, which in a way reinforced, in my mind, reading it, much of what we've heard today about people saying basically this participatory approach can be very useful. So thank you for that. That's very interesting.